The very first day you disappear, everything changes inside her mind, even if she doesn't show it. She notices immediately that something feels off. She might not admit it, but she feels the silence right away. You see, women are used to a certain rhythm. If you've been present, if you've been calling, texting, checking in, there's an expectation built inside her. The moment that rhythm breaks, her mind registers it. Day one is not about her missing you deeply, but about confusion. She wonders, why hasn't he reached out? Did something happen? Is he upset? At first, she tells herself it's nothing. She'll excuse it by saying you're probably busy, or maybe your phone died, or work kept you occupied. But underneath that surface explanation is a slight discomfort, because what she expected didn't happen, and human beings hate when expectations are not met. By the second day, that discomfort begins to grow into curiosity. She starts noticing her phone more than usual. Every time it lights up, there's a small hope it's you. She replays the last conversation you two had, trying to figure out if something was wrong. Did she say something that pushed you away? Did your tone sound different? Did she miss a signal? She starts digging into the details because silence, especially sudden silence, forces the mind to search for answers. And the more she searches, the more you occupy her thoughts. Remember, when you were calling or texting, you were predictable. Now you're not, and that unpredictability creates curiosity. And curiosity is the seed of attraction. By day 3, the curiosity becomes too strong to sit quietly. Now her ego steps in. This is when she doesn't just wonder, she starts to test. Instead of directly asking why you've disappeared, she looks for indirect ways to pull you back in. Maybe she posts something on social media designed to catch your eye, something she knows you'll notice. A selfie, a story, maybe a status update that feels suspiciously directed at you. She might send you a light, meaningless text, "Hey," or a random emoji, or a question she already knows the answer to. But these aren't really about the content of the message. They're about testing if you'll bite. She wants to see if you're still paying attention, if you're still orbiting around her. And this is the turning point of the early days. Because if you jump the moment she gives you that tiny piece of bait, she knows she still has control. But if you don't, if you remain steady and disciplined in your silence, the test backfires on her ego. Instead of proving you're still available, it proves to her that maybe, just maybe, you're not. And that thought is what begins to create the emotional shift that will grow stronger in the days ahead. That's how the first 3 days unfold, and that's when her mind begins to realize that your silence is not just an accident. It's something she has to deal with. When the 4th day arrives, the weight of silence starts to grow heavier. The excuses she made for you in the beginning start to fade. At first, she thought you were just busy, maybe caught up with work, or maybe you simply needed some space. But now, doubt begins to creep in. She starts questioning herself in ways she hadn't before. Did I say something wrong? Did I push him away without realizing it? Was I too cold, too distant, too demanding? The control she once felt over the dynamic now begins to slip through her fingers, and she feels it. Before, she knew exactly where she stood with you. She was certain that if she wanted your attention, all she had to do was wait, and you would appear. But when you disappear, that certainty is replaced with a fog of uncertainty, and uncertainty is what changes everything. Doubt is uncomfortable for anyone, but for a woman who was used to your consistency, it's a shock to the system. She replays your last interactions over and over, almost like rewinding a movie in her head, looking for clues. She analyzes words, tones, small gestures, even things that seemed harmless before. She wonders if she took you for granted or if she pushed too hard. That doubt opens the door to something she hadn't considered. Maybe you're slipping away. Maybe you're even better off without her. And as those thoughts grow, her pride and ego feel the sting, because suddenly she is no longer in full control. By the fifth day, something new begins to rise above the doubt: nostalgia. The silence leaves a space, and that space doesn't stay empty. Her mind begins to fill it with memories. This is when she starts remembering all the good times, the little moments she didn't pay much attention to when you were around. The way you made her laugh, the effort you put into her, the comfort she felt when you were present. Suddenly, the flaws she used to focus on don't seem so big anymore, because her mind is busy painting the past in softer colors. When someone is gone, the brain has a way of exaggerating their best qualities. And now, instead of simply being a man who texted her or called her every day, you become the man who gave her experiences and emotions that no one else can quite replicate. This is a powerful shift because emotion always outweighs logic. Even if she told herself logically that she didn't need you, even if she thought she could easily move on, the emotional pull of memory begins to outweigh those rationalizations. The human heart doesn't operate on reason, it operates on feeling. And the longer she goes without hearing from you, the more those feelings begin to dominate her thoughts. The silence is no longer just silence. It's a mirror reflecting all the good you brought into her life. By the sixth day, those emotions become too heavy to carry alone. She starts seeking reassurance, but not directly from you, at least not yet. Instead, she begins talking to her friends. She brings up your name casually at first. "Oh, I haven't heard from him lately." She may frame it as curiosity, but in reality she's looking for validation. She wants her friends to give her some insight, some reason for your disappearance. She asks questions. Do you think he's upset? Do you think he's lost interest? And depending on the advice she gets, her feelings intensify. Often, her friends won't just tell her to forget you, they might say. You should reach out. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he needs to know you care. That external push from her social circle only amplifies the internal storm already happening inside her. At this point, the balance of power has shifted dramatically. You were the one who once did the checking in. You were the one who sought reassurance, but now the roles are reversed. She is the one feeling uncertain. She is the one seeking guidance. And she is the one who begins to realize that your silence has created a vacuum in her world that she can't easily fill. It's important to understand that by day 6, her emotions are no longer about simple curiosity. They are layered. Doubt makes her wonder what she did wrong. Nostalgia makes her miss what you gave her, and reassurance, seeking, shows that she is beginning to care enough to involve others in the conversation. All of these layers create pressure inside her, a pressure that only grows stronger the longer you remain silent. And that is exactly where you want to be, not because you're playing games, but because silence has forced her to see what she couldn't when you were always available. It made her reflect, it made her feel, and it made her recognize your value without you having to say a single word. That's the power of what happens when you disappear in those middle days. It shifts her from control into doubt, from indifference into nostalgia, and from pride into vulnerability. And slowly, without realizing it, she's being pulled back toward you. By the 7th day, her emotions have reached a boiling point. What began as confusion and curiosity has now transformed into something more powerful: jealousy and insecurity. You see, silence is never neutral. When you pull away, she doesn't just sit still. Her imagination begins to work overtime. She starts to ask herself, why isn't he reaching out? What is he doing? Who is he with? And because she doesn't have answers, her mind fills in the gaps with possibilities, most of which lead her to one conclusion: you might be giving your attention to someone else. This thought stings deeply because whether she admitted it before or not, she enjoyed knowing she had your energy, your attention, and your presence whenever she wanted it. Now, she no longer feels that security. She opens your social media, searching for clues. Maybe she scrolls through your posts, looking at every caption, every like, every comment. If she sees you smiling, enjoying life, or surrounded by people, that tiny seed of jealousy grows. Even if there is no other woman in the picture, the possibility that there could be one is enough to trigger her insecurity. Women are territorial with the men they respect, and your silence has started to rebuild that respect. The thought of losing you to someone else now feels unbearable, and that jealousy begins to push her emotions into action. By the 8th day, all those feelings, jealousy, insecurity, nostalgia, doubt, combine to create pressure. She is no longer comfortable being silent. She doesn't like the feeling of being left out of your world. The balance has shifted, and she feels it deeply. In her mind, she's asking, why isn't he chasing me anymore? Did he really move on that quickly? Am I not important enough to him? Those questions eat away at her pride, because deep down she wants to feel chosen, wanted, valued, and right now she feels the opposite. That pressure builds each day you remain silent. It's around this time that she begins to think seriously about breaking the silence herself. In the beginning, it was a test, just little check-ins, casual emojis, or attention, seeking posts, but now it's no longer a game. Now it's about preserving her connection to you before it slips away completely. She starts drafting messages in her mind, thinking about what she could say that won't make her look desperate but will still get your attention. She may reach out with a longer text, something more meaningful than before. She may call instead of waiting for you to call. She may even try to coincidentally put herself in your path, finding reasons to be where you are, all just to reopen that door. The pressure she feels forces her into action, because silence has created a void she can't ignore. By the 9th day, action is almost inevitable. She makes her move. Maybe she messages you late at night when her guard is down. Maybe she comments on your post, trying to remind you she's still around. Maybe she even apologizes for things she said or did before, or tells you she's been thinking about you. This is no longer about testing, it's about effort. She is now investing in you. She is doing what you used to do, and that role reversal is powerful. When a woman begins to put in real effort, when she initiates, when she reaches out, when she tries to close the gap, it means she feels the fear of losing you. And fear of loss is one of the strongest motivators in human psychology. Her actions might not always look big from the outside, but what matters is the energy behind them. The fact that she is no longer content sitting back means your silence has worked. She realizes now that your presence in her life was not something guaranteed. It was something valuable, something she now has to earn. That shift in perspective changes everything. By the 10th day, respect and desire begin to return hand in hand. She no longer sees you as the man who chases without pause, who sacrifices his dignity for her attention. She sees you as the man who has self-control, who values himself, who doesn't crumble under pressure. And that is exactly what reignites her attraction. Respect always comes before love, and without respect, desire cannot last. But when respect is restored, desire flows naturally. Now she finds herself thinking about you with a new sense of urgency, a new sense of appreciation. The man she once took for granted has proven that he won't wait forever, and that realization makes her want you more than ever. This is the point where the dynamic has fully shifted. She is now the one chasing, the one reaching out, the one trying to prove herself worthy of your time. The silence has flipped the script, not because you manipulated her, but because you stood firm in your value. By holding back, by disappearing for a time, you created the space for her to feel, to reflect, and to recognize what she had. And now, instead of you pursuing her, she is pursuing you. The beauty of this transformation is that it doesn't come from words, it doesn't come from arguments, it doesn't come from begging. It comes from discipline. It comes from your ability to stay silent, to walk away when necessary, and to allow her to experience the full weight of your absence. That is what makes her return with respect, with desire, and with effort. And that is exactly when she realizes your value, when she feels the fear of losing what she once thought was guaranteed.